Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we are trying a brand new color corrector. If you've seen my content before, you know I've done many videos on color correctors over the years, and it's been a while since I've done a dedicated video, but a lot of you have been asking for me to review this new Too Faced corrector. So these are called the Brighten and Correct Concealer. So it's basically like the Too Faced concealer, but just in correcting shades. And a lot of you have been asking me about these. So I have 3 of them. I have already tried them, so I have thoughts already. So of course, I will also do some comparisons to other color correctors that I own, because y'all know I try them all for the most part. I own a lot of them, and we're going to talk about how these compare to everything else as well in this video. So this is going to be a very in-depth color corrector video. This is not going to be short. That's how I like to do corrector videos. I like to give you all the information that you could possibly need to decide if a corrector is right for you, or maybe it's not. So that is today's video. If you're new here, my name is Blair. I have tons of color corrector videos on my channel, but I also do a lot of other beauty content. I would love for you to stick around and subscribe if you have not already. We would love to have you here. If I look funny, it's because I have foundation on and I did my brows, and that's it. So nothing under my eyes, but let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit and we'll get started. The first thing I want to say about these is I've already tried them. I've tested them. I think I've worn them the past 4 days in a row. So I already have pretty solidified thoughts on these. This is what they look like. Now, yes, they are very tiny. That's the first thing I want to point out. You are getting 0.06 fluid ounces in here for $17. Now, when I first saw that these were being released, I thought, oh, that's weird. They're releasing a mini before a full size. But no, I think this is the product. They're not releasing a full size based on my understanding. And now that I've used them, I can see why. So I ordered the 3 lightest shades. This comes in 6 shades, which I'm really happy to see. A lot of the time with color correctors, we don't get very many shades. We get like 1 or 2, sometimes 3, but 6 is pretty good. The only other brand that does a really great shade range at Sephora, well, 2 other brands, are the Caliray correctors. Those are great. Kosas, I believe, comes in 5 shades, which is pretty good. And then Natasha Denona has a decent shade range as well, but some brands really limit the shades with correctors, which is no good. You got to get the shade right with color corrector, otherwise it's no good. It won't work. You might as well just not use anything. But let me open this up. So this is the lightest shade. This is the shade Pink. Now, I ordered 3 so that I could show you the difference of the 3 shades. Only one of these will I continue to use. The other 2 don't really work for me, and I'll kind of get into why in a minute. But let me open up all 3 and I'll show you. So these are them. So we have Pink, Cool Peach, and Warm Peach. But you can see they are tiny. This is very small compared to like the Kosas corrector. This is the difference. But now that I've used these are extremely full coverage, extremely full coverage. So honestly, you don't need very much of this product at all. I'm assuming that's why they made these in a mini size. I think they were intended to be correctors. I think they're kind of marketing it as a correcting concealer. They're color correctors. If you look at the shade range, apart from the pink, the lightest shade, these are color correctors. So they are not typically meant to be used like a traditional concealer. You want to use them only in the areas where you need to neutralize some pigment. Okay, so that I personally think is why they made these in a mini size, because you'll see when I apply them, the first time I applied this, I applied way too much. And I thought when I was putting it under my eye that I wasn't using enough, because I thought I was going in pretty light-handed. No, I'm gonna say these are the most pigmented cream liquid corrector that I've tried ever. And you may remember, if you saw When these came out from Kosas about a year ago, I talked about how full coverage these were. Okay, these are not anywhere close to as full coverage as this. So if you've seen the Too Faced concealer, the Born This Way concealer, I don't own that anymore. I used to a long time ago. That is a pretty large concealer. So don't order this and think that you're getting that. You're not. You're getting a very tiny mini size. But like I said, when you see them, you'll understand why. All right, so here are the swatches. So we've got pink, we've got cool peach, and we've got warm peach. First observations on the colors. Pink, pretty standard. What we typically see with pinks is something like this that has a lot of white in it. So this is not going to color correct unless you are really, really fair, but even then I would say this is not going to color correct. The only thing this will do is brighten the under eye area. If you have darkness, if you have blue, if you have purple under your eyes like I do, I would not recommend using something like this. Even if you're a light skin tone, even if you're lighter than me, but you have darkness under the eyes, kind of similar to what I have, you want to correct that darkness first. If you go in with this, even though it does say this is for fair to light skin tones, I am a light skin tone, but my darkness under my eyes is not light. It's definitely deeper than my skin tone. So if I just go in with this, the darkness just shows through. Y'all have heard me say it so many times, but it's like putting pantyhose over a bruise. The bruise is going to show right through because you're putting something light over something that's dark. So don't get this and think you're going to color correct true pigment under your eyes. If you have something similar to me, you're going to want to go up to one of these two shades. So we have Cool Peach and Warm Peach. Cool Peach works great for me. I'm going to apply it and show you. But Warm Peach, it's definitely more yellow to me than a traditional peach. I know they say it's a warm peach, so that kind of makes sense that it would be a little bit more yellow, but it's quite yellow orange. So on me, that doesn't work great. However, the Cool Peach is a really nice pinky peach tone that I actually think will work for a lot of people. If you are fair, light, light medium, even medium, this shade is going to be great if you have a lot of blue and purple under the eyes. So those are kind of my initial thoughts. This one is too yellow for me. It doesn't help me in terms of the blue under my eyes. Yellow does work pretty well for purple. My under eyes are more blue purple, so typically I find things that are a little bit more pink and peach rather than yellow and orange work better for me. So those are kind of my thoughts on the shades. Now the formula, guys, like I hope it will come off on the camera. It's pretty thick and it is very pigmented. Very, very pigmented. This is definitely a formula. You're going to want to apply less than you think you need. And you're also going to want to prep your under eyes. You do not want to use something like this with dry under eyes because it's already on the thick side. It's not super hydrating. It's not drying, but I think if you already have dry under eyes, based on just how the texture of this is, I feel like it might make you look a bit dry. So this is not hydrating. I would not say that at all. This is a very thick, full coverage cream corrector. We'll do comparisons at the end, but let's go ahead and apply these. Before we apply, like I said, these correctors definitely require you to prep the under eyes. It's been a little while since I've put anything under my eyes, so I'm going to take a little bit of this Rock Eye Stick. I always forget the name of this. The Multi-Correction Revive and Glow Eye Balm. I'm just going to use my finger. Typically you can swipe this on, but since I have a little bit of foundation on my face, I'm not going to do that. But I'm going to take just a little bit of this balm and I'm just going to press this under my eyes just to make sure that the area is not too dry, because like I said, these are pigmented, they're on the thick side, they are very full coverage. You don't want to apply something like this on dry, yucky skin. It will not work and it won't look good, especially if you want to put concealer on over it. which this is a product you're definitely going to want to do that with. All right, let's get into applying. So I'm going to apply the one that works the best for me, which is Cool Peach. So this is the second shade that I swatched on my hand. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some of this from the back of my hand because, like I said, I've tried this a few different times. Typically with correctors, I just take the doe foot applicator and dot it where I need majority of the coverage, and that's fine. But with this formula, it's just very pigmented. So I'm going to get it from the back of my hand, and I'm also going to use a small eyeshadow brush. So this is an old Luxie brush. It doesn't really matter what you use, it just needs to be small so you can pinpoint where you're placing this corrector. Okay, so I have some on my brush. Now I have majority of the issue right here, which is where most people do. Basically at the tear duct to about, like the center of my eye, this little like circle right here. So I'm gonna take that corrector and I'm just gonna press that in. Press, press, press. And if you feel like you're not getting enough, remember you can always go in and add more, but with this formula, you do not want to overdo it. So I've got majority of the product right here, and then I took whatever was on the brush and I brought it right here because on this eye, I have this like blue, it's a vein, but it creates this blue shadow right here. So I do sometimes like to bring some color corrector there, but I used very little product. Do you see the difference already? I hope you can, because there's a big difference, big difference. This corrector, full coverage, okay? So for that reason, that's why I say you want to pat, you want to press this in. You do not want to blend this everywhere under the eye, only where you have that concentrated pigment that you're wanting to correct. The nice thing about using a corrector like this with quite a bit of pigment is if you do this correctly, you should need very little concealer. The corrector should do a lot of the work for you, meaning you don't need to apply a ton of concealer. So something you always want to keep in mind if you are wanting to buy a color corrector is you want to buy it based on the pigment that you're trying to cover. So for example, I have a light skin tone. If I was just going based on the description of all these shades, I would get this one, which is pink. Okay, this is not going to color correct though. This is going to brighten like I was saying earlier. So even though this shade is marketed for medium skin tones, I am clearly not a medium skin tone. My darkness is. So you want to match your darkness with your corrector, and then you want to add your concealer on top that matches your skin tone, and it brings everything back together seamlessly. The beauty of color correctors is if you get the right shade and you apply just a little bit, only where you need it, like I was saying earlier, you shouldn't need a ton of concealer. And if you match the darkness with your corrector like you should be doing throughout the day, your darkness is going to remain covered. If you go into light with something like this and your under eyes look like this, throughout the day, you're going to get kind of a gray cast under your eyes because the darkness is showing through. It's going to start showing through and it's going to get worse and worse throughout the day. So when choosing a corrector, you want to choose one that matches the depth of the color that you're trying to correct. Even though this is for medium skin tones, you can see it does a really nice job of neutralizing that pigment under my eyes. Does it match my skin tone? No. So for that reason, I do have to apply concealer that does over the top. Hopefully that makes sense. But I hope you can see it does an excellent job. That's a great shade for me in Cool Peach. Now on the other side, I will use the Warm Peach shade since I have it. This one I could get away with using. It's not my favorite though. I prefer something definitely more similar to the Cool Peach side, but I'll show you just since I have it. So I just cleaned off my brush, and now we're going to use this color, and I'll show you the difference, but I'm doing it the same way. And something else to note is my darkness on this side is not typically as dark as this side, so I really need even less product over here. So there you go. So we've got warm peach over here, we've got cool peach over here. And something else to keep in mind is correctors are kind of trial and error. So you kind of have to figure out what works for you. You may have to try a few shades. Sometimes, like, I'm pretty confident when I buy correctors because I've used them enough that I feel pretty confident in choosing a shade. But if you've never used one before, it may take you a minute to figure out what kind of tone works the best for you. So there you have it. So this side, I don't know if you'll be able to tell on camera, but it's more peachy, cooler toned. This side is more yellow, but they're about the same depth of color. So the depth is right in terms of matching my darkness. It's just the undertones are different. But like I said, I can honestly get away with both. I don't love anything yellow. I'm just not a big fan of yellow under my eyes or really in anything in foundations. I prefer something neutral to cool leaning, if anything. I think I'm a true neutral undertone on my face, but for under the eyes, I like something neutral to cool leaning. I don't like yellow, warm, orange. I don't like that. So I could get away with this, especially if I put concealer over the top. But I do typically prefer something that's more on the peachy side. Like, I don't know if you'll be able to tell, but this side, even though it's darker than my skin tone, it does kind of blend more evenly and look less obvious than this yellow over here, because these tones kind of match my skin tone better than the yellow golden tones do. Yeah, so I don't know if you'll be able to tell on camera. I'll try to zoom it in a little bit more so you can see. But this shade is too dark for my skin tone, but it does kind of blend a little bit better into the color of my skin overall. This one, there's a really stark like yellow line right here, just because I don't have yellow undertones in my skin. I'm going to use concealer over the top, but of the two, for me, I think this one works better. But if you're someone that has similar under eyes, but you are warmer than me, you might prefer the warm peach. It just kind of depends. And sometimes, unfortunately, you do have to try things to figure out what works for you. But this corrector, beautiful under the eyes, as long as you don't use too much. I will say, after it's been on the skin for a bit, it dries to more of like a satin finish. Not matte, but it's definitely not hydrating or radiant looking. It does have a little bit of dry down, which, especially if you're putting concealer on top, that's nice, so that when you apply concealer, hopefully you're not going to move the corrector underneath if it has a little bit of a set down already. I know someone's going to ask or want to see the pink, so I'm going to show you the pink on this eye now. I just removed the warm peach and I reapplied the Rock under eye balm. So let's apply the pink and I'll show you kind of what I mean by it's not going to color correct if you have the level of darkness that I have under my eyes. Okay, I'm going to use the same brush. I'll clean it off real quick. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to get the pink off the back of my hand. And I'm going to place it in the same exact area that we placed the peach, the warm peach. Hopefully you can see the difference. All right, so does this side technically look brighter than this side? Yes, but this side looks gray. It has like a blue-gray cast. So we didn't cover anything. We didn't brighten anything technically because the darkness is just showing through. So yeah, we added something lighter under my eyes. So it does probably look a little bit lighter than this side, but we didn't correct anything. I would rather just go without anything under my eyes, to be honest. I hate the look of really bright, stark under eyes, especially if you have darkness under your eyes. That is just not a great look on anybody, in my opinion. So hopefully you can see the difference if you're wondering why. This is a perfect example of why I say don't go in with pink if you think it's going to hide darkness. It won't. If anything, it's going to make it look worse. This side, we corrected, and then we're going to bring it back to the skin tone with our concealer. So I'm going to take this side off. Then we'll apply the Cool Peach on both eyes and we'll even it out with some concealer so you can see the final result. All right, so I did Cool Peach on this side as well. Now let's go in and do some concealer and you'll see everything kind of blend into the rest of my skin. I'm gonna use this Haus Labs concealer and I'm gonna do a dot here, a dot here, same thing over here. I'm gonna take a little bit right here because I do have that blue shadow there. I'm gonna take a brush and I'm gonna make sure to press the concealer in. I always apply concealer this way, even if I didn't have corrector on, but especially if you have color corrector on, you do not want to move all the work you've done under your eyes. So you definitely want to press your concealer in. No swiping, no pulling, no tugging, so that everything stays in place. And now we've corrected, we've concealed, and now my under eyes match the rest of my face again. I'm gonna blend this side in now. Honestly, color corrector is a lot more powerful than concealer in my opinion. So if you're someone that struggles with your under eyes, you feel like no matter what concealer you use, you're not happy with how your under eyes look, it may not be your concealer, it may be the shade that you're using, or it might be that you need a color corrector underneath, that you are using something maybe that's too light for the under eye pigment that you have. So if you've never tried a corrector before, and that sounds like you, I really encourage you to give one a try. But definitely be patient, like I said, because there is some trial and error. You have to figure out what works for you. And that's why I make these videos and I try to be as in-depth as possible and compare things and apply things so that hopefully I can help you decide what will work the best for you. So there you have it. I have corrector and concealer under both eyes and we look corrected. My under eyes match the rest of my skin. My darkness is completely covered and we used very, very little product, but we used a shade that matches the pigment I'm trying to cover, not my skin tone. So I hope that was helpful for you. I'm gonna go ahead and finish the rest of my makeup. I have some other things to film and then I'll be back at the end and we will compare to some other correctors that I have in my collection. Okay, finished the rest of my makeup, but let's do some swatch comparisons to some other correctors that I have in case you're wondering how some of the shades may compare. So I've got the 3 Too Faced here. So we've got Pink, Cool Peach, and Warm Peach. I think the corrector that this reminds me the most of in my collection is definitely the Kosas Revealer, which is also my favorite. It's been my favorite for probably about a year at this point. I'm always talking about how great the coverage is on the Kosas. The Kosas is definitely not as full coverage as the Too Faced though, surprisingly. The texture is similar. I do think the Too Faced is a little bit thicker than the Kosas, but they both have a very creamy texture. So I use the shade Illusion in Kosas. So you can see it's honestly kind of a mix of the Too Faced, the Cool Peach and the Warm Peach. So this is Illusion. So this is actually pretty similar to my skin tone when you blend it out. So the Kosas, I could more easily get away with using it by itself than I could with the Too Faced correctors. So the Kosas has quite a bit of coverage, but not as much as the Too Faced. So I would only recommend this corrector and the Kosas for somebody that has quite a bit of discoloration under their eyes or on their face, and also someone that is more experienced with color correctors, just because these two formulas are more on the pigmented side, and they don't have much room for error. So I would say if you've never applied a corrector, probably wouldn't recommend this new one or the Kosas unless you kind of feel comfortable and you need a significant amount of correction. But I would say of the ones in my collection, it's probably the most similar to the Kosas. I also have the lightest shade in the Kosas, so I'm gonna swatch it next to the pink in the Too Faced. And yeah, you can see they're almost identical in color. So that is Kosas, that is Too Faced in pink. So you can see they both have a lot of white in the base. So they're both brighteners. So you don't ever see me use the Kosas because this doesn't correct for me. It's too light. All I could do was add this to brighten under the eyes, which I don't really. So this is basically the same as the pink from Too Faced, but the Too Faced is just a little bit more pigmented in my opinion. But those two formulas are very similar. The other formula that came to mind is the e.l.f. So you haven't seen me use this one in a while, but this is the High Fidelity color corrector in peach. And this one is also a much thicker, creamier texture. I would say it's the most similar to the Kosas, still not quite as pigmented or as full coverage as the Too Faced. But that is it there in the shade Peach. So you can see it's a little bit more peachy than Illusion from Kosas, but not quite as intensely peach and yellow as the Too Faced. So those two are kind of in between in terms of the shades. But again, I don't think either of them has as much pigment as this Too Faced. So the Too Faced is definitely at the top for coverage. Under that would be Kosas and then the e.l.f. in my opinion. And then probably next I would compare to Natasha Denona, the Hy-Glam corrector. Now this one is much thinner. This is thinner than the other three that I've just mentioned. This is the shade C1. You don't see me use this one that much because this has more yellow. It's more of like a yellow orange to me. So this is C1 down here. So do you see the yellow in this color as opposed to these colors up here? And like I was saying with the warm peach, I'm just not a huge fan of the yellow under my eyes. So that's why you don't see me use the Natasha Denona very much, this one. I just prefer something that's a little bit cooler, a little bit more of a true peachy pink. But this is also very pigmented, same pigment level I would say as Kosas or even the e.l.f., but this is much thinner in terms of the consistency. And then we have a favorite from e.l.f. This is the Soft Glam corrector. Now this is a pink, but as you'll see, this pink doesn't have a lot of white in it. So this pink actually can correct. So that's it there. Do you see how that is a true pink, like a salmon-y tone, as opposed to these two that are more white? So that pink from e.l.f. is more of a true pink tone that you can correct with. So if you have a lot of blue in particular under the eyes and you're a lighter skin tone, I personally think a true pink like this that doesn't have a lot of white in it works really well. Now this formula from e.l.f. is thinner than all the other ones that I've just mentioned, and it's on the lighter side in terms of coverage. So it's definitely low down on the list for pigment. And then the final one is the Caliray. Now this is the complete opposite of the Too Faced. This one is very, very thin, very liquidy, and it spreads quite a bit. So this adds a lot of hydration under the eyes, but the pigment level is much more sheer on this one. So this would be more along the lines of a beginner in my opinion. So that is the shade Cool Sunrise from Caliray, which is a great formula. It's just a lot less pigmented than some of these others. So those are a few comparisons for you. Hopefully those were helpful. All right, so that is everything for this video. So my final thoughts on these new Too Faced correctors. I'm actually very impressed with them. I wasn't really sure what to expect because the Too Faced concealer is not my favorite. I've never loved that concealer. I haven't used it in years, but I can remember a long time ago it wasn't my favorite. So I wasn't really sure what to expect, but I have to say, I think Too Faced did a really nice job with this formula. However, like I've been saying throughout the video, it is the fullest coverage of my liquid cream correctors by far. So I would not buy this if you do not have a significant amount of darkness on your face that you're wanting to cover, or if you're not having problems with darkness showing through your concealer. You probably don't need something this heavy duty. But if you do, this will cover. As y'all, I hope you saw under my eyes, a little bit of product will completely correct your under eyes, or you could use this on the face as well for any type of pigment you're trying to cover, but you just don't want to overdo it. Don't apply too much. It is not a super hydrating formula. It's definitely on the thicker side and it's very pigmented. But will I continue to use it? Yes, I will definitely continue to use Cool Peach for sure. But I've been applying correctors for years, so I'm very comfortable applying them, but probably not the best formula for a beginner, in my opinion. But do I like it? Yes. But if you have a lot of darkness or a lot of discoloration on your face that you're having a hard time covering, this is a great option. Just use less than you think you would need. And I think that's everything. I hope this video was helpful. I will have these linked for you in the description box. I can link the other ones that I showed you as well. If you're curious about anything, everything will be linked below. I will link them in YouTube shopping for you as well up on the screen. If you do shop through my links, I do make a commission that supports my channel. So thank you so much for that. Oh, and I did see that One Size is coming out with a new color corrector stain. It looks like a kind of like a little crayon, but it's supposed to be a stain. I did order that. I just haven't gotten it yet, but I will be using that in an upcoming video. So if you're interested in that, make sure to stay tuned. That will be coming. And if you're new, I would love for you to subscribe and stick around. And if you're not already, make sure to follow me over on Instagram at simply.blair and TikTok simply.blair1. And I will see you again very soon. Remember, simply be you.